A very good afternoon to one and all present. Myself, Tanushri, Associate Professor, Department of Pharmaceutics, welcome you all on behalf of Institution Innovation Council of Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy to the Motivational Startup webinar under the initiative of Government of India's Ministry of Education. Established under the aegis of the Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy in 1983, the college has been a nurturing ground of young talents. In keeping with its objective of providing the best possible pharmaceutical education, the college has built up a strong infrastructure. Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy is constantly seeking to elevate the quality of its education and dynamically participates in research and has been a pioneer institution when it comes to the pharma education. We have come back with yet another motivational talk on the theme startup. The title of today's talk is My Story, Motivational Session by a Successful Entrepreneur. Dr. Shamik Chakravarti, co-founder and CEO of Pharmazen, Bangalore. I would like
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. And I know it's a little bit after lunch, so everybody might be a little sleepy. So please don't sleep off.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. We have an introduction session and then we will be letting you to talk.
Sure. Okay.
I would like to welcome the President of Institution Innovation Council of Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy, our ever-energetic and dynamic principal, Dr. M.D. Salahuddin, sir, to open the session of this wonderful and motivational talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tanushri, for starting today's motivational talk, having the speaker and the center of gravity of today's Mr. Shamik. And when I approached him in a very simple way, Mr. Shamik has accepted to deliver a talk. In fact, I wanted to have his physical presence in our Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy, but he is very tied up with his scheduled work, and he has promised that next time he will be visiting there physically. But we don't want to miss his chance, and we have invited him at least to be part of today's motivational talk, at least virtually, and he has accepted. The very purpose of conducting Mr. Shamik such type of motivational webinars, inviting the startup entrepreneurs or the people who has the innovative ideas. While going through Pharmazen, probably one of our faculty is going to give brief on introduction on you also. I was just looking your Facebook page, your the company's website or the app that I was using. It has a very good different look. Probably when I heard one of your employee who is the alumni of our college, he has given the complete insight of how you have started the Pharmazen and how you are taking the business to the next level. Probably your life itself is going to be an example for all the attendees today, that how innovation, how a startup, how the ideation you are going to implement practically, how the success is going to be. And most important is that your zeal and enthusiasm, passionate towards providing the fresh fruits or vegetables right at the doorstep to the people. That idea is very nice, and I'm sure highlighting that itself will give more the knowledge to our people and to the students. Our all pharmacy students who are all attending, we wanted them to think out of box. Usually we never say in our institution that try XYZ job where you can repeat it enough. We try to encourage them that how they can bring up their ideation and they can have their own startups, looking or thinking in a different way. That's how we have tried, and probably today's talk definitely of 1 hour, which we will be going to speak to our the young minds of the pharmacy and from the different institutions. Many principals have joined from Karnataka. We are all going to get an insight to it. I'm sure your talk is going to give an insight to it. Thank you so much for joining today's, and we are eagerly looking to hear from you. I also invite to many of the principals who have joined today for this talk from different the states as well as from the different institutions. I take privilege to also thank them, and Once again, thank you, Mr. Shamik, for joining. I'm sure you'll have a great time. Over to you, Tanish.
Thank you, sir. I would like to call upon the convener of Institution Innovation Council of Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy, Professor Dr. Mubin Ghani ma'am, to enlighten us about the various activities we conducted in the IIC. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, Tanushri, I'm audible? Yes?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to our speaker, Mr. Shamik Chakravarti. Principal Sir, my colleagues, my dear students, and all participants for today's motivational session by a successful innovator, Mr. Shamik Chakravarti, co-founder and CEO, Pharmazon, Bangalore. This motivational session is organized by IIC of Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy. Sir, we had another motivational talk on Saturday by Mr. Lokesh, who is a successful startup founder. I want to give you a brief introduction about Institution Innovation Council. Institution Innovation Council, IIC, is a program that has been launched by Ministry of Education through MIC, that is Ministry of Education Innovation Cell, in collaboration with AICTE for higher educational institutions to systematically foster the culture of innovation and startup ecosystem in educational institutions. The role of IIC is to engage large number of faculty, students, staff in various innovation and entrepreneurship related activities such as ideation, problem solving, prototype designing, design and critical thinking, IPR, project handling and management at pre-incubation and incubation stage. IIC of Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy is a faculty expert student council which was formed in February 2022 with 21 council staff members, 9 student members, and 5 external experts. Sir, we are actively involved in conducting many activities under IIC, like motivational sessions by successful entrepreneurs and startup founders, many sessions on startup innovation and entrepreneurship, more workshops on IPR, prototype designing, business model canvas, funding agencies, and many competition for students like 2D and 3D models, presentation of ideas to convert from waste to wealth, hackathons with some software models, you have logo and slogan designing, etc. And we have also conducted many celebration activities as prescribed by IIC, like World Cancer Day, then we have World Pharmacist Day, World Earth Day, World Technology Day, and many other days. All these activities are conducted to encourage our students and motivate our young researchers, all students and faculty, to become innovators and entrepreneurs. Welcome you, sir, and thanks for accepting our invitation to deliver your success story as an innovator, a startup founder. I hope all our students, staff, and participants get motivated with your success story and may help them to generate ideas for startup. Thank you. Over to you, Tanushri.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Ms. Bhagya Lakshmi, Assistant Professor, Department of Quality Assurance, to introduce our guest speaker of today, Dr. Shamik Chakravarti. Over to you, Ms. Bhagya Lakshmi.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Bhagya Lakshmi.
Good afternoon, one and all. I'm Bhagya Lakshmi C. from the Department of Quality Assurance. Take the privilege in introducing today's speaker, Mr. Shamik Chakravarti. Mr. Shamik Chakravarti is founder and CEO at Pharmazon, a farm-to-fork marketplace which takes a social commerce approach to providing market access to responsible farmers practicing regenerative agriculture. Sir believes that a better food system can be built by connecting conscious communities to small-holding farmers who shepherd their soil. Sir has been building innovative products and business over 2 decades across startups and large enterprises including Amazon, Yahoo, and Juniper Networks. And Sir holds an undergraduate degree in computer science from BITS Pilani and MBA from Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. Now I would request our distinguishable speaker, Mr. Shamik Chakravarti, to start the session. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, Bhagya Lakshmi, Dr. Salahuddin, Dr. Ghani, and Tanushri. So I think I'm really happy to see a lot of participation by educational institutions nowadays. I think things have changed a lot in India compared to, let's say, 20 years back from the entrepreneurship perspective, right? So I have been doing startups since, like, the first startup that I joined was, I think, way back in 2003, right? And at that point of time, joining a startup was actually a negative. Uh, in the sense, if you join a startup, then people would ask you, hey, what happened? You didn't get a job in Infosys. Why are you joining a startup? What if it closes down, right? And nowadays, it's actually become a positive, right? Because of all of the success stories that we have been hearing of, things like Flipkart, etc. Right. So I think there is a drastic sea change. And I think it's heartening to see educational institutes also really playing a role. And let me give a quick example of what two of my alma maters are doing. I think that might give some insight in how other institutions are looking at fostering entrepreneurship, right? So I have two alma maters, right? I did my undergrads in computer science from BITS Pilani in Rajasthan, and I did my MBA from ISB in Hyderabad, right? So both of these institutions have actually started to play some important roles. First of all, both of these institutions, there have been several people who have built really, really large companies, much larger than Pharmacin, right? For example, if you look at ISB, there are several unicorns which have been founded by ISB alumni, right? Right from Mindtickle, right, to Mog Lakes, to a bunch of these, right? Similarly, at BITS Pilani also, Swiggy is founded by BITS Pilani alumni, right? And so again, there are several unicorn startups which have been founded by BITS Pilani alumni. And I was kind of thinking about, what is it? Is there something different that these institutions do? What support systems are there from an entrepreneurship perspective? So let me tell you about a couple of things, right? So one is, what happens is, at BITS Pilani, if you see, so they introduced a mechanism where both staff as well as students can actually take 1 year off, right, and pursue an entrepreneurial venture, and they can come back. So all that they have to do is they have to write a letter to the dean, right, explaining what they are going to start, right? And the institution is very supportive of both staff and students to actually go out 1 year and then come back and complete the degree if it doesn't work out. If it does work out, then there is a dialogue on how do you complete the degree later on. So I think that has been received very well by obviously by staff as well as students, right? Because it kind of de-risks the thing. Because I mean, one of the things that all of us who have done entrepreneurship is that we should all be aware of the risks that are there also in entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is great. It's very liberating. You get a chance to innovate. You get a chance to build things. You get a chance to be very excited about your work in general, but there is also always risk associated. And I think a smart entrepreneur figures out ways how to manage that risk, rather than say, hey, no, there's no risk and entrepreneurship is all good. We should be aware of that risk. So this brings us to, so that's what one of the things that BITS Pilani does. Then there is an entrepreneurship lab, which actually takes a lot of support from alumni. As alumni themselves become entrepreneurs, they donate money back to these institutions, right? And then that goes in funding. So, for example, BITS Pilani has its own VC fund, right, which is for like alumni put in money to say, hey, there's a fund. Now this fund will invest in companies which come out of BITS Pilani's current students, right? So that's also a second thing that can be done. A similar thing is happening at ISB as well, right? Where they created an incubation center, but they also said, let's create a corpus, a fund which operates just like a VC fund, right? So these are things I think that should be explored by multiple institutes, because we see that, end of the day, as a support system for entrepreneurs, what is required is some level of understanding that there is risk associated with entrepreneurship, and how do you make that risk manageable for entrepreneurs, right? If students are going to take a risk by jumping into entrepreneurship, how do you manage that risk? Be aware that things could fail, and that is part of the process. I mean, somewhere there was data that, out of 100 companies, maybe 5 of them will succeed and 95 might actually fail. That's okay, but it's still worth a try, right? And one of the good things that we have seen in the last 5-6 years is that companies are actually, nowadays you will find job descriptions which say, hey, we prefer X entrepreneurs, right? So that's also something to look at, that it's not a negative to fail in an entrepreneurial journey, right? And it might have been earlier, but now the industry is waking up that as an entrepreneurial journey, you might end up learning a bunch of things which actually become useful. So that's, I think, the second part. Now, today's presentation, I'm going to cover very quickly 2 different topics. One is we are going to talk about the Pharmacin journey itself, how we came out, the initial idea, and things like that. And then we are also going to talk about organic farming in general, because I think it's an interesting topic which everybody should know a little bit about, right? So although that's not directly related to entrepreneurship, but I think I'll spend 10-15 minutes talking about that, and then we'll take questions, right? So let me share my screen and get started. So I'll first start off with talking a little bit about Farmizon, the initial idea, how we came up with it. And then we are going to talk about organic farming in general and some of the myths about organic farming. So, okay. So Farmizon basically has two goals, right? One is, how do you have predictable income for small landholding farmers in India? And how do you give access to safe and healthy food for Indian consumers, right? So think of it as a two-sided marketplace, right? One stakeholder is consumers, but the other stakeholder are farmers as well. And specifically, I want to draw your attention to two keywords here. One is predictable income. See, when you talk about, hey, how do we improve farmers' lives, etc., everybody talks about, we need to increase our farmer income by 2 times, 3 times. But we actually beg to differ a little. We think that that's just one part of the problem, increasing it. We feel that it is also equally important, if not more, to make it predictable. Because if you look at, for example, vegetable farming, right? A typical vegetable farmer would make about a profit of 7,000 rupees per month per acre. Okay. Now, but that 7,000 rupees is also not predictable. Some months they'll lose money. If they have grown tomato and the tomato prices crashed, it came down to 1 rupee, 2 rupees, then they have completely lost money. If they grew capsicum one season and suddenly there was a lot of, the prices increased of capsicum and became 120 rupees, then they might make 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs also, right? So the problem that happens in farming, as we realized, was that it's not just a matter of, people need to make more money, but it needs to be predictable. Otherwise, it's like walking into a casino. Vegetable farming, for example, is really, it becomes a lot like gambling. You never know when you will make money and when you will lose money, right? So that's something we need to be aware of. And the second is that India is a land of small landholding farmers, right? So the way we have to solve problems of our farmers, we cannot just look to the West. Because if you look at, for example, US, right? Average US farmer will probably have at least 400, 500 acres of land, right? An average Indian farmer will have 2-3 acres of land, right? So there is a big difference in the scale. So the solutions that are talked about in the Western world from a farming perspective, in terms of, hey, we need to mechanize agriculture, it needs to be more industrialized, it needs to be a lot more scientific. Those may not be the most important solutions to solve for a small farmer case, right? Many of those solutions don't work directly. For example, abroad, people have started using drones a lot, right? In case of farming. But if drones make a lot of sense. If you have a 500-acre farm, yeah, you can't walk around the farm every day. You definitely need to use drones. But is that a solution for somebody who has 1.5 acres of land and is growing vegetables? Probably not. 1.5 acres is just like 60,000 square feet. You can easily walk around it in a few minutes. You don't need to invest in a drone. That drone is probably not going to really help you. So I think that's something that, as entrepreneurs, a lot of times, as you are thinking of different ideas, you need to, a lot of times we use inspiration from abroad, right? As, hey, okay, this is what is happening in China, or there is this company in the US. Let's try to create a similar company in India, right? So the first big lesson for us is that when you are trying to look at a particular market and trying to adopt a solution from there, be very careful. It's always better to do more of first principles thinking and say, hey, this is a different market. It might have completely different challenges. The same thing you cannot just bring here and do it. Okay. So let's go to the next slide, right? So if you look at who are the customers of Farmizon, right? So one of the things that you should do when you are looking at entrepreneurship and you are thinking of how do you build your business, I would really strongly urge you to take a piece of paper and pen and try to just write a line saying, here is my ideal customer, right? And we call them user personas, right? So for example, one of our user persona is, and this is a completely fictitious person, right? Shweta. Shweta basically lives in a apartment complex in Sarjapur. She and her husband both works, and she has a small balcony at home. So she wants to make sure, she has a small kid, so she wants to make sure that what she's serving to her family is healthy and chemical free. And she's thinking that maybe I should grow some of my vegetables on my own, because what I find in the market, I don't know what sort of chemicals have been used. Is it actually healthy for me or not, right? So this is an example of a user persona. On the other side, there is Venkatesh, who's an Indian farmer, right? He's basically saying, hey, you know what? I wish I could make a little more money from farming, and I wish that I didn't have to, my kids are thinking of moving away from farming, going to the city and picking up a job because they've seen how problematic it is. And I wish that it was more predictable and it was not like gambling and it is like actually having a steady income, right? So let's say Venkatesh. So one learning is that you should definitely create similar sort of user personas, because then you can visualize who is it and write that user persona down on a piece of paper. It'll actually help you talk through and think through as you're starting your business, right? So if you look at how Shweta and Venkatesh, they transact today, right? And we are going to talk mostly about vegetable farming at this point of time. It's actually a very complex supply chain, right? As you can see in the slide, which is up here, you guys are able to see this slide, right? With a lot of different boxes, right?
Yes,
so
yes, it is clear.
yeah. So if you see, like, the supply chain is actually pretty complex, right? Right from what goes into as the last mile, right? It could be a small shop, it could be the small thelawala who's coming with vegetables, it could be like a Reliance Fresh or somebody, right? It could be a Raitu Bazaar, it could be some sort of another Sunday bazaar, it could be a farmer's market, etc. These guys, many of them are buying from bigger traders, right? Many of these traders are buying from middlemen at the village level, right? These traders from the middlemen is buying from different, let's say, bigger farmers. Those bigger farmers who might be filling everything up into a truck, they are in turn working with smaller farmers who are nearby them, but who don't have enough produce to fill up an entire truck. And so it's actually a pretty complex system, right? And because of this system, there are few things that happens, few problems that happens, right? And we'll talk about those problems very briefly. So one problem that happens is farmers make only 15% of what you pay. So if you are paying 100 rupees, finally what goes to the farmer is maybe 15 rupees or maximum 20 rupees, right? So this is one big problem, because, and it's not because there are greedy people. See, the usual thing we think is, oh, middlemen are greedy, they're all exploiting farmers. It's not that. It's just that it's an inefficient system, right? With so many different intermediaries. Each intermediary is taking 10%, 15% of their cut, which is justified, right? Because every single person here has costs, right? The big farmer has costs because he's hiring the truck, right? The middleman at village level, he has costs because he's providing credit to these big farmers, right? The big traders, he's filling up everything from a central place, let's say in Nelamangala, and he's transporting it to the city and going to different places, maybe going to the mandi. He has a cost. So everybody has to put a margin to cover that cost, right? The shopkeeper finally he's taking cost of wastage, right? So basically, it's because the supply chain is so fragmented and so many intermediaries, not because there are people who are not good or who are evil people, so they're not paying the farmer. It is because it's just inefficient, right? Which is why farmers end up making very little money. So that's one problem. The second problem is that consumers are also, they don't know where this produce came from. If you have in your lunch, think of the vegetables that you ate in your lunch today, maybe brinjal, maybe capsicum, maybe karela. Do you have any idea where it came from? 99% people would not have any idea. So you don't know, forget about which farm. Do you know which district or taluk it came from? You don't know, right? Do you know which state it came from? Probably not. Did it come from AP? Did it come from Tamil Nadu? Did it come from Kerala? Did it come from Karnataka? You probably don't even know that, right? So when you don't know that, there are a lot of problems that happens, and we'll talk about that later. But we basically said, hey, can we visualize a different way of doing this, right? Can we completely think of a different supply chain where farmers and consumers are interacting directly, and Farmizon in the middle is helping enable that interaction, right? And the way we started doing it was with a very innovative, interesting sort of a model where we said, forget about everything. What if there was one farmer, let's say there's one farmer who's in, let's say near Banerghata, right? And he has, let's say, 2 acres of land, right? Can he feed from 2 acres of land, can he feed 100 families with most of their vegetable needs, maybe 70-80% of their vegetable needs, right? So the way we did it was each acre, we divided up into about square feet plots, okay? These plots were all 600 square feet plots. So imagine 1 acre would have 42,000 square feet. So you will easily be able to make at least 50 to 60 different such plots, which we called mini farms. And we said these plots will be rented out by individual consumers or families, right? And they will pay 2,500 rupees per month, which covers all costs, right? And Farmizon will take some cut out of that, right? And Farmizon will take care of deliveries, etc., giving the seeds and saplings to farmers, all of the input costs. Farmer will focus on land, labor, water, actually growing it. And the way it will work is consumers would open up their apps, they will choose which vegetables to plant. The farmer will actually go and plant exactly those vegetables, and then consumers will monitor it through their app, and then it would get home delivered to them every week, right? As things start growing. So it was like many people started calling us, hey, this is like real life Farmville. It's like any of these farming games that you might have seen on Facebook, etc. But it's just that instead of playing a virtual game, you are actually playing a game where you're getting real crops. Whatever you are doing on the app is being done by the farmer on the ground. And so what we saw were certain benefits out of this, right? First of all, farmers' incomes became at least 3 times, right? In fact, their profits became 3 times. Why? Let's say, imagine if you are a farmer, consumer is paying 2,500 rupees per month. Usually we would consumers would get at least 5 to 6 kg vegetables per month based on this, but most often we have seen that the average was 8 to 9 kg vegetables is what they would end up getting, right? Based on yield of a plot and things like that. So and the farmer basically now he's making we would do a revenue share with them. We would do a 50-50 revenue share, right? Our costs will be delivery, seed, saplings, imports, marketing, customer service, all of that. There is basically they're getting everything and they need to kind of grow things. Now imagine if he has 50 plots in 1 acre, he's basically making a total revenue of 60,000, right? 60,000, a little more than 62,500, right? Out of that 62,500, this is a more labor intensive model than regular farming because he will be growing many different crops together. So it would basically end up giving them their profits would kind of be like 30,000 per acre, right? So imagine I told you that 7,000 was their profit per acre. Now you're talking about 30,000 per acre, right? And in a predictable manner because consumers sign up for a subscription fee. They pay 2,500 rupees every month, right? So this is why this model kind of became very popular very quickly. And there are a bunch of things. Let's not look at that because otherwise I won't be able to cover the next thing. But essentially, the way it works is Shweta, we talked about Shweta. Shweta finds a suitable farm for herself. In the app, she decides what to plant. Being an amateur in farming, she decided to opt for a particular starter plan, which she can customize later. There's a chat group inside the app where you can talk to other families. If there were 100 families in a particular farm who had subscribed to, they could all talk to each other, right? So that basically they have a community, they can exchange growing ideas. What vegetables should I plant, etc. And the farmer would also have an app, right? So the farmer had an app where they would basically, remember, many of these farmers might not know, might not be able to actually read any language, right? So they might not be able to read Kannada, they might not be able to read Telugu, Tamil, they might be illiterate also, right? So we basically made an app for them, which they could understand even if they don't know how to read a language, right? Because, for example, if you see there's A12 and there's an icon of a camera, basically this means it's an instruction to the farmer that click on this, take a photo of that A12 plot, right? The next line basically says, hey, just water the plot number A12, right? This one says put neem oil on the place where carrot is growing, right? So all of these. So the system would generate these instructions for farmers, and the farmer didn't need to know a particular language because it was all made with things, and they could use the farmer app. So think of it like if you look at a Ola, Uber sort of a situation, right? You know that you are using the Ola app, but the driver also has a Ola app, right? Similarly, so this is basically the supply app which the farmer uses, right? So now Shweta could come to the farm herself. She sees an update on the app saying, hey, my carrot is now ready to harvest. She can come to the farm. She harvests some carrot. She can go and also get some palak, which is also ready. Some radish might have become ready. So she comes back harvesting stuff herself. Or she can say, okay, let me just go and let Farmisen home deliver it to me. I cannot come this weekend, so let Farmisen home deliver it to me, right? So this is how basically it was working. Now, let me quickly go through these slides. Okay. So, and then when something gets empty, then the system would suggest them, hey, your carrots are all harvested. Why don't you now plant tomato, which takes into account crop rotation rules, etc. And then they would basically, the farmer will get that instruction in the app. Shweta will click on something. And this is how basically things would go in, right? Now, let's say Shweta says that, hey, let me grow a few flowers also, right? She could go ahead and do that as well, right? So now, in order to build this is something else that I wanted to talk about, which is that if you are building a entrepreneurial venture, from the outside, a lot of things seem simple that, oh, this is straightforward, this, that's it. But there's usually, when you put more thought to it, when you draw up a business plan, then you realize that there are several different angles to it which you need to cover, right? So for example, if you look at it, I explained a pretty simple mechanism, right? But if you look at all of the different things that goes into building something like that, right? There is a community angle. How do you enable interaction between farmers and consumers, consumers and other consumers, farmer and farmers? What is the technology infrastructure required to do this, right? What sort of inventory management you're going to send seeds and saplings to farmers? How do you know which farmer has what? Are they misusing it? Is it all being fine? How do you optimize your delivery, right? How do you make sure that if you're sending a truck to deliver things from the farm to the consumer, that truck should do at least 40, 50 deliveries, otherwise cost per delivery will be high. How would you do that? What sort of crop planning is required in an automated way, right? So that you can scale the business without having to add stuff. So crop planning, tracking, how do you manage all of this data around crop growth, yield data? How do you continuously get better? So all of these things are required, right? So usually when you look at businesses and then you start thinking about it and putting things into paper, you realize that there are a bunch more things that so when you are doing business planning, first thing is, when you're putting an estimate, this is how much it is going to cost, multiply that estimate by 2x, right? Because as you learn, you'll realize, oh, I didn't put in costing for that. Oh, I thought I'll build that in 1 month. It is taking 2 months. So another rule of the thumb is that whatever your budget is, that you think this is what it is going to take to start the business, double it. That's going to be a more realistic estimate, right? So all of these different things are there, right? So it takes pretty much a long time. Now, why this model was received very well, and we got a lot of we got awards across the world. BBC covered us, CNBC covered us, etc. For multiple reasons, right? So one is that this sort of a model basically people can trust completely. There is reduction in food miles. Food miles is an important concept. How many miles does your food need to travel to get to you? We are all talking about global warming, etc. If food travels from a long distance, when you're getting strawberries from China, right? It's actually not good for the environment because you're wasting a lot of food miles, right? This avoids ugly produce wastage. In the US, 40% of all produce, vegetables are thrown away because they don't look good, okay? In India, the percentage is smaller because, what usually happens is something which is sold in the supermarkets are looking good. Then something where the thelawala is taking to different poorer sections of society live. They take some of the things which do have some defects, etc. in them. But essentially, this model avoids the ugly produce wastage completely because consumers pay for inputs, not for outputs. Of land and to sponsor the seeds and saplings, they might get X number of vegetables out of it, right? So all the vegetables are there. Imagine if you had a garden, right? And if you're growing food in that particular garden. By the way, you guys are able to hear me, right? I don't want to.
Yes, it is clear.
Okay, cool. So see, the big advantage of a model like this is that you are then able to imagine you are growing something in your own garden, right? In your balcony garden, and you got 5 tomatoes. One of those tomatoes was a little crooked. Will you throw it away or will you also eat it? 99.9% chance you will not throw it away. You'll be like, boss, I put in so much hard work to grow this tomato. It just looks a little crooked. Let me use it because it all tastes good, right? So, so this model actually avoids that ugly produce because we tell consumers, boss, it's all your produce. We are going to give it to you. You decide. If you don't want to eat it, throw it. But no consumer throws away good produce. But that same consumer would not buy that tomato if he went to a supermarket, right? Then, of course, because everything is organic. So, and this is what we'll talk about a little bit later. There's no groundwater pollution, toxic residues on figures. And for consumers, it's also great family fun and learning because they can come and visit the farm. It was so surprising when we started this business that people have really forgotten very basics, right? For example, which things grow in which season. Almost 99% of us don't remember anymore, right? We are like, hey, food is always available all throughout the year. Yeah, carrots, why can't it grow in summer? We get carrots in summer also, right? Cauliflower should be all throughout the year. But if you really look at it, there is there are seasons when things grow. And it's usually much better to eat seasonal food because it's much better from a nutrition perspective. We are big believers in nature having a very smart design in nature's mind, right? So there is a reason why certain vegetables grow in certain seasons, right? There is a reason why you are expected to eat apples in that particular season, for example, right? So those things have gone completely missing. In fact, the way we think about it, it's like nature is like your dietitian, always knowing what is best for you at that particular season. Just eat what is seasonal at that particular time, and you have your own diet plan, right? You don't need to listen to somebody else and pay them money to get a diet plan, because nature is your diet plan, but you need to know how to listen to nature, right? And then, of course, there are other benefits, like farmers get exposed to crops and things like that. Right. So this is more about farmism. Now, couple of quick things. Although it seems like a very simple business model, go to a farmer, divide his farm into mini farms, get consumers to subscribe, and then let them do things. There are actually a lot of challenges also that we face, right? And I put down some challenges there, right? One is the whole dichotomy around, is this a fun and engagement novelty thing, or is it something which can actually give you a lot of, is it more about getting vegetables, right? And we kind of needed to make sure that in the app design, we needed to do all of those things, right? We had to use different psychological techniques to make consumers realize that this requires a little bit of behavior modification, right? How, for example, usually when you buy vegetables in the market, you buy vegetables saying, "Bas, acha, mere ko biryani khana hai, so I need raita tomorrow, so I'm going to buy some onions, some tomatoes, some cucumber." Right? Okay, that's what it. So you feel like eating biryani and you buy tomato, cucumber, and onions, right? For the raita that you're going to, and you probably get some brinjals also, because you're going to make or maybe mirchis, large mirchis, to make a mirchi ka salad, right? That's how you buy usually. In our case, because you're making decisions to plant in your mini farm, and then different vegetables come out of it, the method that which consumers need to use is completely different. The method of thinking is, oh, okay, my Loki is ready for harvest, and my tomatoes are ready for harvest, and my beans are ready for harvest. Carrot is not ready. What can I make with Loki and beans and tomatoes? These are the recipes that I can do. Okay, let me ask my grandmom. Maybe she knows some other recipe with Lokis that I can do. So it's opposite. And this is how originally people in villages used to eat food. People in villages, they were used to eat food saying, oh, I want to have biryani tomorrow. What vegetables I need, let me, because they would say, no, these are the vegetables that I have in my own garden, right? I have to make food using those vegetables rather than buy vegetables based on what, right? So that was one thing which we kind of needed to put in a lot of things to set those expectations with consumers, etc. Right? Second big thing was, how do you handle bad participants in a two-sided marketplace? So if you look at Ola and Uber, for example, right? Not only what do you do if there's a bad driver, right? What do you do if there is as a platform, what do you do if there is a bad customer as well, right? So this is a typical problem that all two-sided marketplaces face. What do you do in case the demand side actor is not good, and what do you do when the supply side actor is not good, right? So those are challenges that we had to figure out. Do we let consumers rate farmers? Do you let farmers rate consumers? Or should it be both sides? How do you expose that rating to people? What if people get upset seeing that the farmer has given them a low rating and they say, okay, I don't want to continue with farmism, right? So all of those sort of things you need to think about. So this is mostly about farmism. I'm just going to shift gears a little and talk a little bit about organic farming, and then we'll start taking questions. So I'm going to do the organic farming bit very quickly, hopefully in 10 minutes, and then we can talk about it. So are things fine so far, or is it too boring? Because if it's too boring, you tell me. I'm going to shift track and say something different.
No, sir, it's not boring.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about organic. Okay, are you able to see this this another presentation that I'm
yes, sir,
opened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to actually talk about a few very basic concepts. See, everybody has heard about organic food and organic farming, etc. But when I talk to consumers, I realize that people still don't really understand what it is. Most people think organic food means it's probably things where you have not used pesticides. Okay, that's the definition that people have of organic food. But that is not really the definition. So we are going to talk a little bit about that, right? And we are quickly going to cover a few of these subjects, right? The soil food web, what is the link between nutrition and soil, what really is organic, and how do I identify what is organic produce? Why is it so expensive? And if I had a limited budget, what food should I buy organic? What are these words, GMO, non-GMO, that people talk about, right? So the first thing, which is basically about the soil food web and the soil and nutrition link, right? This is something that most of us don't know about, and which gradually people are realizing, right? The fact of the matter is that there are more cells in your body of microbes than human cells. So every one of us is actually made of more microbes than of human cells, right? And a big number of these microbes live in your gut, right? So in your alimentary canal, so your gut bacteria, for example, and they play a huge role in our health, right? Now, this gut bacteria, we have started talking about it very vaguely. We talk about, okay, we are going to eat probiotics, right? People are doing marketing saying probiotic curd and all of that stuff. But one of the basic fundamentals that we have realized is that your gut health, the amount of, and these are all good bacteria. So usually when we hear of bacteria, the first thing we get is, oh, bacteria, bad thing, right? Let's eat some antibiotics, kill bacteria, right? What do antibiotics do? Antibiotics basically kill bacteria, right? So, but one of the things that we have, a lot more research is also coming out around it, is that this gut bacteria, that the bacteria that live in our gut, has a very big role in our health. It has a very big role in helping us absorb nutrition from the food. And what is very interesting is, and this is something that you guys should debate in and day out, given that you are all studying pharma, right? So there is a lot of impact on the medicines that you eat, right? Yes, we need medicines to solve our diseases, but how do you take those medicines and not damage our gut bacteria is something which I think we should be very aware of, right? And the reason why I bring this up is because the fundamental principle here, that your gut is a living thing, right? And it has so much of this very biodiversity of bacteria, which work with us to help us, right, in a symbiotic relationship, is exactly how organic farming also happens. So there is so much of similarity and parallels that we see between how bacteria in the gut help us become healthier and help us absorb nutrients from our food, to how bacteria in the soil, and not just bacteria, actually bacteria, fungi, and many other things, help plants get their nutrition from soil, right? So the one big fundamental thing that organic farming is about is, how do you build a lot of bacteria and fungi in the soil so that there's a healthy ecosystem of life in the soil, right? Which you are then going to, which is going to produce food which has high nutrition value for us, right? So if you look at the soil food web, for example, all of this stuff is happening in the soil, right? Plants are actually at the top of the soil food chain, right? And plants are basically magical because they're getting solar energy, they're getting carbon dioxide, and they're magically making food, right? But there are a lot of other people behind that making the food process, which we don't realize. Like our mental model, like 4 years back, 5 years back, before I started farming, I used to think, oh, plants make our food. And I was not aware of anybody else who's making our food, right? Then I remember, yeah, earthworms. Earthworms is a farmer's friend, they help. But actually, if you see all of these people who are there, the centipede, the earthworm, the spiders, right, the bacteria, the fungi, they're all playing a huge role in making our food, right? And there is a big science behind that. We can talk about that right now. We wouldn't have time for that. But essentially, the way this happens is that whilst the energy is being captured through photosynthesis, etc., by plants, but there is a soil food web, and there are multiple consumers there. So if you see primary consumers, secondary consumers, higher level consumers, right? So the bacteria are being eaten by the nematodes, mites, springtails, and then they release nutrients. If you see on the other side, nutrients are getting released, right? So then mites are getting eaten by centipedes, for example, right? And they are again releasing nutrients. So the way we think of it is that these are like bags of fertilizer, right? And bags of fertilizer, as a bacteria is getting eaten by a mite, that bag of fertilizer is getting released into the soil. That's a very simplified way of kind of thinking about that. Okay. So now this is how really a piece of land which is growing food for us should look like. And this is how it used to be, right? Before traditional agriculture came in, we were still eating food, right? Humans were still alive. But now, unfortunately, agriculture looks like that. And this is how industrial agriculture looks. And this, if you see, the problem with this is just soil is there. The soil is dead, and the soil has been made dead by using a lot of chemicals. So that all of those animals that we saw, these don't exist. All of these animals, these nematodes, the bacteria, these don't exist when the soil becomes like this by applying chemicals, right? And these chemicals don't even have to be very harmful chemicals. They could be as simple things which every farmer uses, like urea, for example, right? We have never, most of us think, oh, urea, it's nice. There's no problem. Urea you put. But 99% of, 95% plus of the urea actually does not stay in the soil, goes to a sea. So that's a different thing. But using a lot of urea repeatedly actually kills your soil. Try and do an experiment. If you are a farmer, take an earthworm and put 1 grain of urea on it and see how that earthworm reacts. It will run away. It will literally run away, right? So the problem with chemical farming or conventional farming is that basically it neglects this whole complex ecosystem, and it says, oh no, it's a very simple thing. We just need to have these plants and let those plants live and we'll have our food. Okay. Because of that, the problem that comes is that the plants that grow in conventional farming are so weak that they get so much of these insects, pest attacks, etc. Because the plants are all, the visual that I get when I talk about chemical farming is almost like, the plant is like in a hospital bed with saline dripping in, all medicines are coming in, but it does not have any strength of its own. That's what, in my mind, conventional farming and chemical farming is all about. That you're keeping the plant alive by giving it saline, but it does not have any strength on its own. So anyway, so coming back to the original thing. So this was how basically plants get all of these problems, right? Now, if you look at the origin of when we started shifting from everything was actually organic farming till the 1900s everywhere in the world, right? Organic farming, the word inorganic farming or conventional farming started coming from the basically when Mr. Haber and Mr. Bosch came up with this really humanity transforming experiment where they figured out how to get nitrogen from the air, right? And basically make ammonia, right? This was the fundamental chemical reaction behind a lot of our fertilizers, etc. Right? Essentially, what had happened was slowly people started saying, hey, it's not enough to be a small farmer. Can we be a bigger farmer? Do agriculture at a larger scale? Oh, but we are not going to, we won't be able to get enough nitrogen back into the soil by just doing organic practices like nitrogen fixation, etc., which is done naturally, but I need to introduce. So first they said, okay, let me go and add fertilizers by getting guano, etc., right? These sort of chemical fertilizers, right? Bird droppings, essentially. And they saw that there is not enough of it, so we need to make it. And that's where Haber-Bosch process kind of helped them do that. But the problem is that in organic farming, the thing is, this is how it looks more like, right? Where you are basically doing things not at that full industrial scale, but you are trying to use the cow manure, right? So in inorganic farming, these factories are the source of nitrogen, right? In organic farming, these buffaloes, bullocks, cows, animals, their droppings are the source of nitrogen, right? So that is one big difference which is there. So now quickly, what is organic? First important thing is it's not just about pesticides, it's also about no chemicals used whatsoever. So no chemical fertilizers also. And this is a very important fact to take into account. So a lot of times things get sold as residue free, right? Residue free does not mean organic. Residue free means chemicals have been used, but both chemical fertilizers as well as chemical pesticides, but they are not, when you do a test, when you detect the amount of residues, that those residues are beyond less than the permissible limit, right? So there is a particular maximum limit. It is less than that. That's why they're called residue free. So residue free is actually not residue free. Do not confuse it with organic. Okay. Now, organic is better for the planet. This is something which is there. Don't want to get into more details about it, but essentially several ways, right? So first of all, organic farming is about improving life in the soil. Good soil is a huge carbon sink, right? So an organic farmer his soil organic carbon percentage will be 3%, 4%, 5%. Okay, if you do a soil test report, if you send it to a lab and do a soil test report. A chemical farmer, a typical farmer would have 0.3% carbon in their soil, right? 0.2%. So now we know, right? I mean, one of the big problems with climate change, greenhouse gases, etc., is that there is too much of carbon in the atmosphere. And the solution to that is, how do you move that carbon from the atmosphere into the soil, right? That is one of the biggest ways to solve for climate change. So organic by definition does that, right? Because organic is about adding compost to your soil, about circling nutrients back into the soil, right? So that's one thing. And then of course, you don't leach, as I said, right? When you use things like urea, etc., it goes out into our water, into our sea and stuff like that. So I have only 2 more minutes to finish this, right? But basically, organic is much, much better for the planet. In fact, if we don't, actually, if the whole world shifts to organic farming, you'll probably see a very quick change, because agriculture is actually one of the biggest polluters in the world, right? We talk about how much pollution cars do, buses do, but agriculture is one of the biggest polluters in the world, right? So if you fix agriculture to do organic rather than using chemicals, you will probably end up making a big dent in the whole problem around climate change. How do you identify organic produce? A lot of people ask about this. Oh, everybody is saying this is organic, this is organic. How do I identify? We see actually a lot of misunderstanding in the sense, most people say, hey, organic produce is costlier usually. So if it is costlier, then it must be looking better. It's actually the other way around. Organic produce usually has more defects because you are not using any chemicals. So when you are buying organic palak, you might see 1 or 2 holes in that palak, right? If you're buying the capsicum, that capsicum might be much smaller in size than what you get. But our expectation as customers is, oh, I have paid more, so my capsicum should be bigger and looks more better. So it actually, organic does not look better. Organic tastes better. So organic definitely tastes better. It has more pungent odors, right? You feel like, this is tasting. If you're having organic dhania, then your house smells of coriander, right? When you buy regular dhania, you will not even feel the smell a lot of times, right? And there is a reason for that. The main reason for that is because in organic farming, what happens is, because you are not using any chemicals, so the plants have to develop their own defense mechanisms to fight diseases and pests, right? Because you're not helping the plant. So what plants do is they produce a lot of phytochemicals to fight against diseases and pests that may attack them. These phytochemicals are the ones which are not only they're beneficial to us, but these phytochemicals give the taste and smell. That is why organic usually tastes better, but it does not look better. Okay, so that's something to know, that in your organic produce, you'll probably find some holes. You might open up your gobi, right? And you might see that there is an insect in it. So do not get angry saying, hey, why is there insect in it? I paid organic, I paid 70 rupees for this instead of 30 rupees, which would have been inorganic. No, that's because that gobi is organic. That's why there's a little bit of an insect in it, right? Why is organic expensive? So the reason why organic is expensive, many people think that, and people talk about, for example, what happened in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka actually recently, they said the whole country is going to go organic, right? And immediately overnight, they went organic. They actually then faced a huge yield drop, okay? And they faced a huge yield drop, and the country is now in a lot of economic downturn, etc., because of that, right? So there are a lot of ways to that. It is because it's not just about, see, organic when done properly, when you are actually taking, organic farmer's job is not to grow plants. An organic farmer's job is to take care of the soil, okay? So that's the big difference. A conventional farmer says, my job is to take care of the plants. No, my job is to take care of the soils. Plants are actually have enough mechanisms to take care of themselves, right? So now if you're going to invest in making your soil really rich by taking the right actions, then what we have seen, one of the important things is you need to grow multiple things together. Most conventional farming is 5 acres of palak, let me put. If you put 5 acres of palak, that is not, you don't do it in organic farming. In organic farming, you have to create biodiverse, multi-cropping situations. So you will be growing 50 different crops, 30 different crops, 20 different crops. You'll have some palak, you'll have some garlic. That garlic will be repelling insects because there are, it has a pungent smell, right? You will have neem trees beside the farm, and so on and so forth. So when you grow multiple things like this, there are research reports which actually show that organic yield is comparable, and in some cases more than inorganic yield, okay? But the yield is calculated as total produce. I am growing 10 different crops. Total produce across these 10 different crops divided by number of acres is the yield. Organic could be higher as well. But if you, in organic farming, if you try to grow only one crop, then total palak from 1 acre in organic divided and total palak from 1 acre in inorganic is going to be very different. Inorganic will win hands down. So organic only works in the multi-crop intensive sort of situation where you are doing. So organic is right now expensive because there is a supply demand gap. The amount of proper organic produce that is available is not enough. And also the second reason is organic is more labor intensive, right? When you grow organic, why is it labor intensive? For example, in organic farming, you cannot use weedicides, right? So you are not going to use weedicides. You are going to get weeds come up into your plot fairly regularly. So you have to do hand weeding, right? So you will spend 10,000 rupees per acre removing weeds every month minimum, right? Probably you'll end up spending 20,000 rupees because in the initial days when you are having a lot of weeds. Whereas in case of inorganic farming, you buy a 500 rupees weedicide, spray it, everything dies off, including all the earthworms, including all the other beneficial microbes, everything dies off and your crop is there. Now the problem, so that is obviously, that is much cheaper. 400 rupees chemical I put instead of having hand weeding by labor. But for the farmer, it becomes cheaper in the short run. The problem happens that your soil, once your soil becomes dead, after that, you have no friends. As a farmer, you have no friends. You have to do everything. So every year you have to put in more input costs. You have to buy more fertilizer. You'll get more pest attacks. More crops will get destroyed. And as a consumer, the problem is that a carrot which is grown organically and a carrot which is grown, let's say, inorganically, there is a huge difference in the nutrition between them. In fact, there have been, again, research reports which say that the orange that we eat now, the concentration of vitamin C in it and vitamin A in it is 1/8 of what the typical orange would be 40 years back, right? So in 40 years, we have lost 7/8%. So now you have to eat 8 oranges to get the same nutrition benefit that we used to get 40 years back, right? This is one of the reasons why usually we see that we have so much more doctors, insurance, hospitals, everything. But you also hear people dying of heart attacks, etc. when they're 30 years old, 40 years old, Punit Rajkumar, all of this stuff, right? It's becoming so regular. Why is we are so much more scientifically advanced now, we are richer in general as a country. Why are we still less healthy than our grandparents, right? Our grandparents, they used to live till 90 years old, no problem, right? So there is something going on. And what is going on is that the nutrition quality of our food has deteriorated significantly. And nutrition quality of our food is dependent directly on the quality of how alive your soil is. And your soil is not alive anymore when you do inorganic farming, right? So this is one important thing. I think, we are really running out of time. So I'm just going to take, I think, last couple of slides. If you have limited budgets when you're buying organic, where should you spend your money in, right? Because I said organic is costlier and all of that stuff. So we look at it kind of like this, that there are certain things which absolutely should be organic. And the way to think about it is, if you see this matrix, there are two, the x-axis and y-axis, if you see, right? One is extent of cooking. How much are you going to cook? Because if you cook something quite a lot, many of the harmful chemicals, the pesticides, the efficacy of that reduces, right? So you will lose some of the harmful chemicals in it, you will lose, right? So things which you cook a lot. But if you're eating salads, for example, salad items, you should definitely buy organic because you are not going to cook them, right? So if you have to decide, should I buy my rice organic or should I buy my vegetables organic? I have limited budgets. You should buy your vegetables, especially the vegetables which you are going to use with less cooking. So greens, because greens you are going to do a light saute with, right? So you should buy your greens as organic. Whereas your rice, maybe you don't really need it to be organic unless you really want to go organic, right? And secondly, for example, how much time since harvest? Because again, if you have rice that you are using is probably 2 years old, by that time, a lot of the negative effects of the pesticides would have gone away, right? So it's okay, you can live with that rice, but you are harvesting something, fresh vegetables today, and you are eating it tomorrow. Not a lot of time has passed for the efficacy of the chemicals to go away, right? So this is, but remember, from a nutrition perspective, rice which is grown organically and rice which is grown inorganically, there's a huge difference, right? In terms of the antioxidants that it has, etc. But basically, this is the framework to look at. So you can look at this slide and see which things are absolutely must to buy organic, at least from my personal opinion, and which things it's better to have organic, but not mandatory, right? You tend to take extent of cooking and how much time since harvest to basically look at that, right? For example, if you look at the fruits and vegetables which have the most pesticides, strawberries, spinach, kale, all of these, see how many of these we eat regularly, right? These are things which have the most number of pesticides. Hydroponics, I'm going to skip. GMO, non-GMO, again, we can probably skip it at this point of time. But this is the final thing I wanted to leave you with. Just keep this equation in mind and you can make the correct decisions for your health, right? That health of soil influences the health of the plant which is growing on it, and that influences the health of the humans, right? And for this, underlying all of this is rich biodiverse. It's not just earthworms, it's all of these microbes And organic farming is a way to take care of those microbes, right? So that's basically it. And let me take Q&A for some time if there's any time left for both
Yes,
of
sir.
the things that I talked about.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Shamik, for this unique talk on the theme of innovation and entrepreneurship. I would request all the participants to switch on the videos. We are now open for the question answer session, and I would like to remind our participants that they need to fill the feedback form before they leave the session. So taking on the first question, is Pharmazine business model is strictly B2C, then what are the chances of scalability of this model?
Right. No, so that's a great question. So we are strictly B2C. What I showed to you, right, was what we started off Pharmazine with, right, where these mini farms and contracting out, etc. What we do know is that this is something that a small percentage of people will be interested in. Many people will not be interested in, oh, I have to rent out a farm, grow my own food, right? So we have launched several other things. Right now, we are basically a farm to fork marketplace. So you could rent out a mini farm if you want, but that's 5% of our business right now, right? You could buy specifically from specific farmers. So one of our big differences between us versus Amazon or Flipkart or Big Basket is if you go to Big Basket, you buy okra. You don't know where that okra is coming from. For us, this is the farmer that okra is coming from. You can go and visit that particular farmer. So we are not just getting you organic produce, but from specific farmers, which is completely traceable. So you can remember that whole slide I showed with how complex a supply chain it is. So you don't know the source of your food. In our case, you absolutely know the source of the food because you can visit that farmer also. You can tell us, hey, can I talk to that farmer? We'll put you in touch with that farmer and you can talk with him. So yes, there are challenges in scalability because when you go B2C, what happens is that your costs can be pretty high, right? Cost of marketing, for example, right? Because every customer you have to acquire, and cost of delivering, for example, can be high. In a B2B model, you're going to take everything, you're going to take a truck, drop it at a shop, right? Whereas here you are suddenly now going to deliver to 100 different customers. So we have done a bunch of innovations around that, and which is where especially in terms of social commerce tactics. For example, we have something where a group of people can form, they can form a group and buy things as a group. So when they buy things as a group, delivery cost goes down because I'm going to go to a particular community and do 5 deliveries, right? The cost of doing 5 deliveries in an apartment complex is the same as the cost of doing one delivery, not exactly same, but maybe 20% more than the cost of doing one delivery. So we use a lot of social commerce tactics to create density of demand, right? Rather than get 100 orders, which are all split across Bangalore, we use tactics so that orders are very, there are 50 orders in Adarsh Farm Retreat. There are 30 orders in Shivaji Nagar. There are 20 orders here. So we use a lot of techniques in the app, and there are a lot of algorithms at play to make sure that there is some level of demand curve shaping that happens, which kind of makes it easier to scale. So yes, B2C businesses are definitely more problematic to scale, but we have used certain techniques for that.
Thank you for answering that, sir. The next question, entrepreneurship creates employability. So is your business attracting people towards farming?
Yeah, so basically, see, as I said, we have seen actually 2 or 3 things happen. One is we have seen farmers who are planning to give up farming, and many of the farmers we work with are people who are very near Bangalore, right? We are in Bangalore and Hyderabad, so many people who are like within 1 hour, 1.5 hour driving distance from Bangalore, right? Because we started off with the mini farm model. We wanted consumers to visit the farms also, right? So because of that, these farmers, in fact, the first farmer where we were kind of starting with, he was not making any money from farming. He was losing money in farming. He was making money from farming by selling water tankers. He had a good borewell level. So water tankers would come to the farm, fill up water, and he was making a lot more money and predictable income from that. So he was like, I'm going to become a tanker business guy than a farmer is what. So many nearby farmers are thinking of, man, I don't want to do farming anymore. How do I sell my land? Someday some developer will take this and probably so they're all waiting for that, right? That's why they end up planting eucalyptus, because eucalyptus destroys your land, right? But they do that saying, okay, maybe after 20 years, somebody will buy my land and I'm done. I don't want to do farming. So absolutely, yes. because now we are giving predictable income to farmers, right? Because A, we are the only intermediary who is managing. There is full transparency. We have a standard fixed revenue share, right? So we do the 50-50 revenue share in general. In case of people who are growing rice, etc., it's much higher. They get 70% of the revenue, right? So when a rice farmer comes to us, we said that, okay, you decide the price. So this is another difference, right? We tell farmers that you decide the price. We'll sell it that price. We have a fixed percentage, right? We'll take that fixed percentage from you. So because of that, it's much more. And also with these farmers, because we teach them also about farming, right? So we tell them that, hey, don't just grow palak, please grow these 30 different things. Because if they grow 30 different things, it immediately becomes more predictable. See, when we talk about in the financial world, we said, oh, investment, how do you make sure you get you reduce your risk? You diversify in your investments, right? You buy a mutual fund which invests in 100 different stocks rather than buying one stock. Same thing for a farmer also, they should grow multiple different crops so that even if your palak crop has got destroyed, your tomato crop is giving you money, right? People don't do that because there is no market access mechanism right now to sell 20 kg of tomato every day, 10 kg of palak every day, and so on and so forth, right? But in our model, we pick up from the farm and we deliver it to consumers. We are very happy with a farmer who says, I have 10 kg tomato, 5 kg ginger, 20 bunches of palak. We say, yeah, that is exactly what we want to. If they go to Big Basket will tell them, hey, I don't want this. Why don't you just grow palak and give me 10,000 bunches of palak at once, right? So the model is very different. And the only model which works with organic farming is when you are growing multiple things together, sowing every day, harvesting every day, just like in your kitchen garden. If you're doing a kitchen garden, you will not say, oh, I'm going to put everything, only palak I'm going to put in everything, right? Or only tomato. You will grow a variety of different things, right? So this also makes it a lot more predictable because they're not reliant on one particular crop, right? So they get bigger percentage of B, we give them these guaranteed offtake situations. We say that you decide your price. You don't have to go to the mandi price. You don't have to look at the Hopcoms price. You decide your price, put that. Do you decide your price based on your cost? Don't base it on. So at various points of time, you will see that the tomato prices are very low in the market and Farmizan, it will still be at the same level. Tomato prices are very high in the market, Farmizan, it will still be at the same level, right? In fact, the rate cards that we have with our farmers, many of those are like they stay standard throughout the year. It is not linked to the market actually. So this definitely helps making farming more lucrative and less of a risk because we need to reduce risk for farmers.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for answering that. Because of shortage of... Yeah, ma'am, please. We have Dr. Salma Khanam with us. She's the Vice President of Institution Innovation Council. Over to you, ma'am.
A very nice lecture, Dr. Shamik. I just wanted to ask, have you tried hydroponic cultures?
Yeah, so actually hydroponics, I had one slide about that. So here's our take on hydroponics, right? So we believe that compared to pesticide used food, because in hydroponics you will not use pesticides, right? Because they are grown in a very protected environment. But hydroponics is not chemical free, right? So in hydroponics you will end up using NPK, etc., right? So the problem that happens in hydroponics is that chemicals are still used, although not pesticides, but the fertilizer part of it, right? So because we are not very supportive of that, we believe that the plant develops a lot of nutrients in its body when it is allowed to defend against pests. So we are more supportive of aquaponics. So aquaponics is different from hydroponics. In aquaponics, you use fish. So you will still grow it in water, but there will be fish in the water. Those fish will eat food and create excreta. That excreta will supply fertilizers to. So we are very supportive of aquaponics because it's a more of a natural system. Hydroponics, there are certain advantages of hydroponics, but we don't believe that it is as good as organic. We don't call it organic essentially.
How about medicinal plants? How many have you tried any of the medicinal plants?
Yeah, so this is very interesting. So we don't, so I think 2 or 3 things. One is that there are certain medicinal plants, things like Amrutaballi, right, etc. These sort of things. We do have it in, many of these actually grow like weeds in farms, right? So in farms, many of these grow like weeds. Many of the farmers have also forgotten what they were about, right? Their grandmom knows, oh, this is what you do, this is what you do. So we keep on continuing, we keep adding those, and we tell farmers, hey, this is going like a weed, just still grow it, right? So we do some of these medicinal plants, but more of medicinal plants which are not.
I think curcuma, a lot of demand is there. Turmeric.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely. So for example, raw turmeric. So we try to focus a lot on things which are not so easy to find as well, right? In regular stores, etc., because they have a lot of these benefits. So we absolutely focus on those. Brahmi, for example, right?
No.
Punarnava
Are you doing
leaves.
that? I don't think you mentioned.
No, so we do have certain things in the catalog which are there, and when consumers rent out farms, some of them actually go ahead and try to grow specifically medicinal plants as well.
Okay, very nice. I think we should interact with you a little more, maybe next time.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Because of shortage of time, we will end the question answer session now. I would now request Mrs. Bhuvaneshwari J, Associate Professor, Department of Pharmacognosy, Coordinator IIC, Al-Ameen College of Pharmacy, to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tanushree. Honorable Speaker, dear Principal, teachers, and dear students, a very good evening to all. I am Mrs. Bhuvaneshwari, Department of Pharmacognosy, member IIC. I am privileged to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion of the motivational webinar. At the outset, I thank Almighty God for providing us with all the resources for this session and making it happen. I'm happy to express our deep gratitude to our esteemed speaker of the day, Mr. Shamik Chakrabarti, who is accomplished for his enterprise, for readily accepting our invitation and sharing his experiences as a startup founder of Pharmazon. I'm sure you have inspired a lot of us here, sir. As a token of our regards, on behalf of our principal, management, and staff of our college, we present a certificate of appreciation to you, sir. Kindly accept the same.
Thank you so much.
Any program, big or small, requires a leader. The leader behind us is our principal, Dr. Salahuddin. He is a source of enormous energy and support. My heartfelt thanks to you, sir, for guiding us. I take this opportunity to thank our dear Vice Principal, who is also convener of the Institution Innovation Council, Dr. Mubin Ghani, for her constant, unconditional support and guidance on all occasions. A special thanks to our dear Dr. Salma Khanam, ma'am, Vice President IIC, for always being with us and meticulously planning activities of IIC. Your presence is our strength, ma'am. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I extend my thanks and appreciation to all members of IIC for the coordination and team spirit. Special thanks to Mrs. Suma, Mrs. Tanushree, Mr. Rakesh, and all others who tirelessly work behind the scene proactively to see that every event happens neatly and in order. Our sincere thanks to our august audience, all teachers and students attending this webinar. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, one and all. With this, we end today's session. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I have left my contact email address in case anybody wants to reach out in the chat.
Thank you, sir, one more time. Thank you once more. I would request all the participants to kindly fill in the feedback form before they leave the session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Hope to see you all in our next, yet another exciting webinar. Till then, take care. Have a good day. This is your host, Tanushree, signing off. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
I would request all the participants to please wait. The feedback link is generated and it will be sent as soon as possible. Please do not leave the meeting without filling the feedback links.
Okay, ma'am.